Hey there, and welcome to our series all about design for your online business, where we talk about things like design creation, practices, and trends. I'm Leah, and I'm here with Emma, one of Printify's amazing graphic designers.
Hi.
And she's going to teach us all about logos today. And she's even going to take us through the process of creating a new logo from scratch. We hope you enjoy this video, and be sure to drop your feedback and comments down below. Now, what is a logo? What is its purpose?
Sure, well, that's a great question. A logo is a symbol that represents your entire brand, your entire company. It's the first impression that your audience gets when they first meet you, whether that be in print, online, in person. So it's essential that a logo represents and best reflects your company, your values, what you stand for, and that you leave a really good first impression. So essentially, a logo is a symbol that is meant to reflect your company's mission, value, and give a good first impression to potential customers and as well as a broader audience. That being said, there's a number of different ways to create a successful logo, and over the years, different brands have tried different things, and overall, logos and their style have evolved to be this sort of simple, minimalist style that we're all familiar with today. The first one that we're going to talk about is a lettermark logo. As you can see, NASA and HBO are super popular brands as well as logos that most people are familiar with. And what makes them a lettermark is that they combine the initials of the company name to form the logo symbol. Related to this are wordmark logos. Coca-Cola and Google are massively popular, and their logos are the entire company name in one icon. A little bit more abstract than this would be Apple and Twitter logo symbols. So as you can see, there's no words involved in Apple or Twitter's logo, but they accomplish the same mission. We know by looking at this apple that it's Apple, and the bird represents Twitter. But taking this a step further, we're all familiar with Pepsi's logo and how it's changed over the years, and this is Airbnb. And at first looking at these logos, it's not totally apparent the type of story that they're telling. But if you go into a company's branding story, usually these logos are broken down so that each element represents a different pillar of the brand and their values. And a really funny thing that brands have done over the years, not just recently, these are very old, but the Monopoly Man as well as the Pillsbury Doughboy are mascot logos, which I'm sure everyone loves.
I actually love mascot logos because companies even have created kind of backstories for them. For example, the Monopoly Man, I learned his name is Uncle Pennybags, which is awesome. The Pillsbury Doughboy, I think he has a wife and 2 kids, so creating that story also kind of gives the company some extra value.
As he should, he's been around a while, he's got a family. So moving on, additionally, these are super popular logos that I'm sure everyone's familiar with, Dove and Burger King. These are known as combination marks. So combination marks are a combination between a word, the company name, and an icon that best reflects what the company does. So obviously Burger King, there's a burger. Another kind is emblems. I won't go too much into detail, but emblems are very typographic. They're very reliant upon text. They're also known as badges, and they tend to look very traditional. And lastly on our list, we have letter forms. Letter forms are kind of the icon logo. It's kind of what you'd imagine when you go onto the App Store to download an app. Netflix and Facebook here use the N and the F to represent their brand. And from experience, everyone knows the blue F from anywhere.
Yeah, and I mean, it's obvious that companies need to have a good, strong logo to be successful. They're essential for advertising, promotions, etc. How have these logos kind of changed or evolved over time?
A lot. There's been a lot of change, especially in the last several decades. A really good example to look at would be Chase Bank. As you can see, they've made some very stark changes that actually a lot of other brands have mimicked in their rebranding over the years as well. So they have dropped the serifed font. They no longer rely on just text. They have dropped bank completely from their name, and now all we have left is a sans serif Chase with this cute little icon that represents who they are.
And so why do these logos need to change throughout the years?
Well, if you have a commitment to your brand, that means you have a commitment to a changing industry as well as a changing company. And over the years, the needs of logos have changed. For instance, now we're in this digital space where logos need to be able to be versatile and used in print, in digital, across all different mediums. So it's really important that there's not too much ornate detail when you're designing a logo nowadays because, like I said, it needs to be versatile. It needs to be recognizable from a far distance away. It needs to be recognizable this far from your face on a phone screen. But perhaps my favorite example of a logo evolution, and everyone talks about this, but it's because it's great, is Google's. So Google's logo, everyone's familiar with. It's been the same since 2015, and before that it was relatively similar to this, maybe with a few more serifs. But their logo in 1997 just shows how humble of beginnings Google started. You can see in the 1997 logo that they have this warped text, they have competing colors, it's almost unreadable. You can't really tell what the logo says, but it just goes to show that wherever you start in your logo design process, you can still end up huge and successful and amazing. So no pressure. And just to show their logo journey. And it's important to note here that the changes we see in the Google logo are very similar to the changes that we saw over time with the Chase logo. So they've dropped the serif fonts, they've updated their colors, they've thankfully gotten rid of that terrible drop shadow from 1998, no longer using embossed text because it's just frankly far too much detail. And now they have a really clean sans serif font that appears friendly and accessible, which is exactly what Google wants to do for information.
Yeah, and we can clearly see that. I mean, their logo has become so much more simple and they're a super successful logo. I've also kind of seen that a logo should be maybe timeless or it needs to be effective without color. What else makes a logo successful?
Sure, so I've heard that a lot, that logos need to be timeless, they need to look good in black and white, but as you can tell, no logo is truly timeless. If you have a commitment to your brand and your industry, your branding and your identity is always going to be changing and evolving and getting better and better. Perhaps when it comes to branding, it's really up to personal preference and what you think is best for your company. And if color suits you, then color suits you, and that's it.
Okay, so that was a really cool little lesson in logo history. Thank you. So now we're gonna go into kind of a practical task. You're gonna create a logo for us. I have kind of created my own fake organization, and so a little bit of backstory. It is a nonprofit and I've called it the Beach Cleanup Crew, okay? And so I've got some volunteers, we're getting kind of pretty big, maybe we wanna make t-shirts and create a brand for ourselves. So can you help our organization make a logo?
Absolutely, it's very noble. This is a project I would take on outside of work anyway. I mean, if you want your nonprofit, your NGO to be super successful and pleasing to stakeholders and future investors, you need to have really strong branding. The pseudo NGO that you came up with, the Beach Cleanup Crew, I actually made a slight tweak to because I figured if we want to go simple and if we want to go memorable, we should probably use as few words as possible. So I went ahead and dropped the word the, I hope that's okay. And the first step in my logo creation process starts with a word association list. So as you can see on my screen, I put together little spaces to write here. We have beach, cleanup, and crew. And the goal here is to write down words that you think of whenever you think of the word beach, the word cleanup, the word crew. So yeah, let's go ahead and do each of these. We can go from there.
So for beach, the first thing I think of is sand or pebbles or rocks. Of course, you think of water probably, maybe some seashells, swimming, of course.
Of course, no, those are great. Okay, and cleanup. What are some great words that we think of when we think of cleaning up?
Clean products, it's shiny, maybe something like a bath or rejuvenated like a spa.
Yeah, of course, spa. Amazing. This is a great place to start. And then with crew.
Crew is your people, maybe. It's your squad, your volunteers, friendship, maybe.
No, that's great. And actually, before we began this, I had already created a list as well. And the reason why is because I didn't tell you is because I wanted to make sure that the words you came up with were authentic and then see if we have any crossovers between my list and yours. So these are the words that I came up with here. And as you can tell, we do. We have some crossovers, like with shell, with shiny or sparkly, and then with friendship, that type of thing. I think one word that I added to my list was care and love. All right, and after we've come up with a really extensive word association list, the next step in my personal process in logo creation is to take those really strong words and throw them into a visual association list. I'd say the strongest words that we had from our original list would have been like shells, pebbles, sparkle, shine, team, love, and friendship. Those are words that really inspire a lot of visual inspiration and are really good to bring into branding in general, not just with logo design. So after we have that list, we can kind of set that aside. And the next step in the process is industry research. So I've gone through and done a little bit of research on Dribbble, Pinterest, Behance. Pinterest is honestly a really great resource for people who aren't designers. I use it quite frequently. And pretty much I went in and I looked up foundation branding, charity, nonprofit branding, beach logos, and I pulled and took screenshots of things that I found to be inspiring, useful, helpful, or just aspirational in general. Now that we have all of that done, all of the back-end processes done, we can finally begin to create our logo icon. So pulling from our original list, let's go back here. Our original list, we had shells, sparkle, and this love and friendship idea. I've taken all three of those and I've created icons for each. And building upon them, I've created a final logo icon. So the shell to represent the beach, the sparkle to represent cleanliness, and then the heart to represent the crew's dedication to this really important mission that you guys have.
Yeah, it looks really great. It's kind of like clean, simple elements. Do you mind showing us kind of how you created each element?
Sure, not at all. So I typically design in Illustrator. So these are some really strong shell shapes that I think we can take from, and I did for our icon. And when I was designing, I went ahead and with the paintbrush, but you can honestly do this a lot of different ways. So the way I do it isn't the Bible. But yeah, basically I just pulled from here and I started playing around, and I didn't take it too seriously and I had fun with it. So I created this generic seashell shape. And after a lot of tweaking and a lot of work of pushing pixels around, I got it eventually to where I wanted it to be. And the icon ended up looking like this. And the sparkle element was actually really fun because, in Illustrator it's fun because you can just take your box tool, press shift, hold it down. And this command applies to like a lot of different programs as well. But I went ahead and thickened it and then turned it around, took my curvature tool, sliced it inwards just a little bit. And that's the generic way to get these little sparkle icon shapes. So that's not perfect, as you can see, but pretty much that's what I did. It's not exactly rocket science. And I think that if you have the opportunity to be creative in whatever program you're using, it's amazing. Next step in my process was to actually create the full logo. So what I like to do when I'm designing logos for different brands, different companies, is I like to have an icon version of the logo, as well as like a full version of the logo that includes the company name. I took inspiration from our industry exploration, these shots over here. And let's say like I pulled this sort of script type, I pulled this shape we can see over here in the Palm Tree Cafe, and I use those elements as pieces in our full logo build. I went ahead and I dragged that icon over here. I tweaked it up, made sure it was extra polished. And then after that, I could begin the rest of the branding because, a black and white logo is great, but it is only like this, it's only step one out of step 1 million to creating a brand. So, but I thought that that's a really good place to start.
And it looks really great. I like how you kind of took those little elements together, and the seashell, you didn't copy straight from Google, you use that as inspiration. Of course, we know you can't steal someone else's picture, but you kind of trace it and use it, and then you took these three simple elements and you put them together to make something just really cool and clean and beautiful.
Of course, yeah. The first doodle that you do, and whether it be on paper or digitally, is always going to be a little awkward, and that is okay. As long as you have an end goal and you know what you're looking to do, you can push those lines, push those pixels until it creates something really, really amazing. This is kind of where the branding process begins. This is where you can get really creative and you can start picking out things like colors and elements that you want to represent either on social media, in print, on your website, for print-on-demand products. So pretty much this is where it gets really fun. I've gone ahead and I've created kind of a little color palette idea. I tried to keep it to nautical colors, because we're keeping things very beachy. And I put the logo icon on different colored backgrounds just to see what it would look like. But typically this process requires a lot of back and forth between the designer and the client. But for today's purposes, I just ran wild with it and had fun. Your word association list and visual association list will also come into play here. Like if I scroll down, you'll see that I put this little banner together that has our logo, the name of the company, an impactful slogan, and maybe these little organic pebble shapes that I directly pulled from our list that we made earlier. So that's why our association lists are so important, is because they inspire not only the logo design, but also your entire brand. These are the words that you use to represent who you are.
I really like it. The colors look great. The pebbles was like kind of a nice little final touch for this here. Overall, it was a really fun task. I learned a lot. I had fun watching you do this, putting it together. If there was one key takeaway that people should take away from this, what would that be?
One key takeaway. It's hard to summarize, but I would say, I don't want to repeat myself too much, but I will. A commitment to your brand is a commitment to adaptation. So, although you may think that your logo that you've just created is solid and it's forever and it will never change, if you have a commitment to your company and to the industry, as your company grows and changes, and as your industry grows and changes, your branding will also have to grow and change. And that's a good thing. As we can see with Google, it was a really good thing that they kept growing and changing. And just as another takeaway, just try not to use papyrus as a font. It's really annoying.
Noted.
Yeah, that's pretty much it though.
Okay, well, wonderful. Again, amazing. Thank you so much. It was great having you here again today.
Thank you, it was blessed.
How do you guys feel? Are you guys ready to create that perfect logo? Let us know in the comments down below, and make sure to like and subscribe and join us again for another design-related lesson.